Hello and welcome to the command phase. My name is Mark and thank you so much for joining me. 10th edition brought massive changes to Warhammer 40k army list building, allowing for more flexibility in construction. While this made army building simpler overall, there are a few key things that need to be considered when trying to build a good balanced list that will allow you to get the most out of your games. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 key tips to level up your Warhammer 40k army list building, so without any further ado, let's get stuck in. With the open nature of the new army unit selection, it allows you to pretty much pick any combination of units you'd like, while sticking to the following rules. You must include at least one character, you can only include one of each named epic hero, you can only include up to 3 units of each datasheet. However, you can include up to 6 units of each datasheet with the battle line or dedicated transport keywords. Each character can only have 1 enhancement, you can't include more than 3 enhancements in total, and these must all be different. While you could hypothetically pick a force of all of the coolest models from your army, this may well limit you from being able to achieve key aspects of the game, such as competing for the primary objectives and completing secondary objectives. I'm not saying not to play any of your favourite models at all, that's a big reason why a lot of us play, but a more measured approach, picking the units to do the jobs you need them to in the game, will help make it a more enjoyable experience for you.
It's a trap!
On paper, there are some units in every army that statistically perform better than others in a vacuum, but when list building, you need to think about an army as a whole and how it will perform. While it's not to say your army may well include a fair number of top performing units, for an overall balanced force it certainly won't be all the S tier units you find in tier lists. With 10th edition moving to less lethality, more specialised weaponry and vehicles becoming a lot tougher, having a variety of units with roles in the army can help you to maximise your point scoring potential each game. You can plan out which units you're aiming at in an ideal world to complete primary and secondary objectives with an overall game plan. I'd be looking to include a variety of the following into an army to give you the best chance. First up, you'll need some main damage sources in both ranged and melee. These are your main hitters you're hoping to trade up with during the course of the game, dealing with your opponent's biggest threats. These could be focused on anti-tank, elites, or infantry. With there being a few objectives in no man's land in the middle of the board, having some resilient units to hold objectives in the open will help you score precious primary points. Plus, making your opponent focus on these, allowing your damage dealers to do what they do best. Cheap units to hold the back objectives, perform actions and screen out any enemy movement or deep striking is a must-have. I say cheap as you wouldn't want to spend a lot of points on an expensive unit like Mega Knobs that are lethal just to sit and not be involved in the parts of the game they are better at, when a unit of Gretchen can do the same job. Do look out for benefits on the data sheets for being on an objective too. Again, the Gretchen are able to gain you CP by doing that role, and that can make a big difference over the course of the game. Scout or infiltration units can be an utter nuisance by grabbing midfield objectives early, which can provide a really important gain of primary points for yourself, or stopping your opponent from gaining primary points. This will end up making them a target they probably didn't have to deal with, and spend valuable resources on them instead of your main damage dealers. Plus, you're able to then move block your opponent, making them go where you want them to. Fast moving mobile units are great at taking objectives quickly, getting behind enemy lines and picking off fragile enemy units. They're perfect for completing a fair number of secondaries that require you to be in different areas of the board. Lastly, you've got the buffing characters. With characters now primarily being attached to squads, they provide buffs that could be invaluable. Whether this is adding durability to a unit like a big mech in Mega Armor, giving the unit is attached to a 4+ invulnerable save, or a blade champion allowing your unit to advance and charge once per game alongside re-rolling any of these moves. These abilities could come in clutch during a battle, although I wouldn't want to include more than 5 characters in a 2000 point army so you don't give up easy assassination secondary points. Primary and secondary objectives are how you win the game, and what you're going to do to achieve them need to be taken into consideration during army construction. Something that is criminally underrated in list design is how many primary objectives you are able to tag on turn 1. These early primary points or denying your opponent them could be crucial by the end of the game. It's definitely worth adding 1 or 2 units to the list that are able to do this. With the option of secondary objectives being randomly drawn each turn, having the versatility in the army to go and complete those without pre-planning is a big way to score in this edition. You can of course take the fixed secondaries if you wanted to know what you needed to do each turn and can plan for this better, although your opponents are able to play around this too. An example here is behind enemy lines. Having fast moving units that can spread across the board quickly or teleport to get into the opponent's deployment zone are key to scoring well on this. If you had no access to any of these types of units, then it would be virtually impossible to achieve this. Of course, if your opponent has this, utilising cheaper screening units to stop them deep striking into your deployment zone or move blocking can help you limit their secondary scoring potential. As you can see from this one secondary, both aspects need to be considered when building a list. You can't of course plan for everything in the game, but having options to be able to deal with and adapt to situations that may arise makes for a well-rounded force. Always make sure that you do not give up easy points on secondaries in your lists. For example, if you have a lot of tanks or monsters in your force, if your army is wiped out, this would give up the full amount of points available for Bring It Down. Whereas if you made sure there wasn't enough in your list to max this out, then you're already limiting your opponent's scoring potential. Characters play a big role in 10th edition, and putting them in the right squads can make a big difference to the squad's output, making them more survivable, or just utilising the squad as ablative wounds to protect the character in getting to where they need to be. Some characters, like a Primaris Lieutenant, can lead a variety of squads, so make sure you take a look through the abilities the character gives the squad when it joins them in order to see which squad it would be most optimal to lead for what you need to do. For example, you may not want to put him with an Infernus squad due to their weapons already auto-hitting, so the tactical precision ability isn't going to be able to trigger, although in rare cases the fallback and shoot might be handy. Whereas if you put him with a squad of Hellblasters, they'll be able to benefit a lot more with both parts of his ability. And if you wanted to get even more out of this, give the Lieutenant the Bolt of Discipline enhancement so the entire squad has lethal and sustained hits, which also happens on a 5 when in Devastator Doctrine. This is a surefire way to wipe something off the table. This is something to think about in terms of lethality and getting the most out of a character. The next example is picking the right character for the roles you're looking to do with a unit. Both Ghazghkull and a big mech in Mega Armor can go with a unit of Mega Knobs. While Gaz is an absolute beast in combat and buffs the melee potential of the Mega Knobs when they finally get into combat, the fact you'd have to foot slog these up the table due to Ghazghkull taking up 18 spaces himself inside a battle wagon really limits the unit size you wanted to use for that. Else you'd need a larger unit to keep him safe, foot slogging up the board to actually make an impact when they get into combat due to concentrated firepower I'm pretty sure they'll have to take along the way. Whereas the big mech can help get this unit across the board and be an extremely resilient thorn in the opponent's side, granting the unit an improved 4-up invulnerable save, plus the ability to bring a fallen Mega Knob back can really affect your opponent's ability to keep an objective or you off it. While they don't have the same lethality as they would with Gaz, they would have a lot more staying power. Depending on what role you need a certain squad in the army to do will determine which type of character you need to pair with them. There are plenty of combos and great options throughout 10th edition to try out and play with to make the most out of your army, so just make sure you take a look through which units each character can join to find the best solutions for you. Lastly, don't expect your army list to be perfect straight away. You'll need a lot of reps to see how each of the units perform in certain situations. Some of these will obviously be better or worse depending on the matchup as well. Use the information you gain during these games to make subtle tweaks, although I'd recommend at least for the first few games to use the same list. This way you can get a better data set on how each of the units play before making changes. When making changes to your list, this could be as small as a different enhancement or swapping a unit out for the next game if you felt you needed more melee or shooting presence. This will then evolve your list into a solid, well-rounded force that you'll fully understand how each part of the army works individually and as a collective in different situations. The most important thing to remember here is to have fun. I do hope you found this video useful, and if you did, hit that like and subscribe button, as it really does help a great deal in knowing if this is the type of content you want to see going forward. If you have any further tips you'd like to share with the viewers, pop them down in the comment section below. I'm sure it'd be a great help to the newer players looking to make their first lists, or ways to improve them. Thank you so much for watching the command phase, and I'll see you in the next video.